My husband mocked me in front of everyone on my birthday. He looked at my silver dress and laughed contemptuously, as if I were pathetic. In that second, I realized the stark truth. I was supporting a man who despised me. For 15 years, I paid every bill, every luxury of his, every whim. While he jumped from job to job, I built everything myself, but he treated me like trash. The next day, I picked up the phone, called the bank, and cut off every penny that was keeping him afloat. That's when all hell broke loose. Do you know that feeling of waking up one day and realizing you've been deceived for years? That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Michelle. I'm 40 years old, and I've always been a hardworking, responsible woman, the kind who solves everything. I built my career from scratch, became a manager, and achieved financial stability. Meanwhile, my husband Richard never managed to hold down a job for very long. He always had an excuse. The boss was bad, the environment was toxic, he deserved better. And me? I carried everything on my shoulders. I paid the bills, maintained our home, our standard of living. I thought I was being a good wife, an understanding partner. But the truth is, I was blind. Blind to the disrespect, to the hidden expenses, to the lack of gratitude, until my 40th birthday brutally opened my eyes. Before I tell you what happened, tell me, what city and country are you watching from? Comment below. My name is Michelle. I'm 40 years old. And over the last 15 years of my life, I've built a solid career. I work as an operations manager at a logistics company here in Chicago. I started at the bottom, as an administrative assistant. I made coffee, organized files, answered the phone. Those things nobody wants to do, but that someone needs to do. I've never been afraid of hard work. My parents raised me that way, with the mindset that if you want something in life, you go after it and get it. So that's what I did. I studied at night while working during the day. I took courses in management, logistics, and leadership. Every penny I saved went towards my education. I had a clear goal, to move up in the company, and I did. It took time, it took sweat, it took sleepless nights studying for exams, but it was worth it. When I finally got the promotion to manager 6 years ago, I felt on top of the world. My salary tripled. I had benefits, I had respect, I had stability. Stability. That word has always been important to me. I grew up watching my parents struggle to pay bills, to put food on the table. My father worked in the same factory for 30 years. My mother was a seamstress. We never had luxuries, but we also never lacked anything. And I learned early on the value of having a stable job, of having a guaranteed salary at the end of the month. When I met Richard 18 years ago, he worked in sales. He seemed ambitious. He talked about growing, about building something big, about being successful. I fell in love with his energy, with his confidence. I thought we were going to be a team, two responsible adults building a life together. I married him thinking we were going to share everything, the bills, the responsibilities, the dreams. But the reality was quite different. The first job Richard lost was 2 years after our wedding. He came home saying he'd quit. He said his boss was an idiot, that he didn't recognize his talent, that he deserved better. I was worried, of course. We had bills to pay. But he assured me he'd find something better quickly. I believed him. I held the bills alone for 3 months until he found another job. I breathed a sigh of relief when he went back to work. I thought things were going to stabilize. But 6 months later, he quit again. He said the work environment was toxic, that his colleagues were envious, that the company had no future. Again, I held everything together. Again, I paid the bills alone. Again, I waited for him to find a new job. And so it went. Year after year, job after job. Richard never stayed in the same place for more than a year. He always had an excuse. The boss was bad, the salary was low, the company was going bankrupt, the hours were bad, the distance was too far. He never took responsibility. He never admitted that maybe the problem was him. He always blamed others. Meanwhile, I became the financial anchor of our family. My salary paid for everything. The house mortgage, the electricity, water, internet and phone bills, the car, insurance, groceries, credit cards. Everything came out of my account. Richard contributed when he was employed, but even then his money never lasted. He always spent it on things for himself. A new video game, expensive headphones, designer clothes, dinners at restaurants. I tried to talk to him about it. I tried to say that we needed to save money, that we needed to have an emergency fund, but he always cut me off. He said I was too controlling with money, that I didn't let him live, that he deserved to have some nice things too. And me, I stayed silent. Because deep down, I was afraid. Afraid of arguing. Afraid of losing him. Afraid of being alone. So I kept working. I kept paying for everything. I kept carrying the weight of everything on my shoulders. My life became an automatic routine. Waking up at 6 in the morning, making coffee, checking emails, showering, going to work, solving problems all day, coming home, making dinner, cleaning the kitchen, sleeping, and starting again the next day. Meanwhile, Richard had free time. Lots of free time. Between jobs, he stayed home. He played video games, watched series, browsed social media. He said he was looking for better opportunities. But I never saw him send out a resume. I never saw him study to get qualified. I never saw him really make an effort to change his life. I sometimes wondered if he liked that situation. If he liked having a wife who supported him completely while he lived without major worries. But I pushed those thoughts away. I convinced myself that he was just going through a difficult phase, that eventually he would find his professional calling, that one day things would get better. My friends could tell. Jessica, my best friend, kept asking me why I put up with it, why I didn't demand more from Richard, why I let him live off me. I always defended him. I said that marriage was about support, about being together in difficult times. But deep down, I knew. I knew that it wasn't normal. I knew I was being used. 15 years. 15 years of working nonstop. 15 years supporting a household alone. 15 years carrying a grown man on my shoulders. And I never truly complained. I never demanded change. I never set boundaries, because I was afraid. Afraid to admit that my marriage was a sham. Afraid to face the truth. But the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. And for me, it appeared on my 40th birthday. A day that should have been a celebration turned into the day I finally opened my eyes to reality, and nothing was ever the same again. Now I want to know from you, have you ever felt overwhelmed in a relationship? Have you ever felt like you were carrying everything alone while the other person just enjoyed themselves? Comment below. I really want to hear your story. And if you're enjoying my story, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories. Because what comes next will change everything. My 40th birthday was approaching. Normally, I didn't do anything special. Maybe a simple dinner, a cake, nothing too elaborate. But this time I wanted to do something different. I wanted to truly celebrate. 40 years. 4 decades of life. 15 years of a solid career. I deserved to celebrate, didn't I? So I decided to make dinner at home. Nothing extravagant, but something nice. I invited my parents, Jessica, and some close friends. And for the first time in a long time, I decided to buy something special for myself. Something that would make me feel beautiful. Something that would make me feel alive. I went to a store in downtown Chicago one Saturday afternoon. I walked among the racks looking at dresses. I wanted something elegant. Something that reflected the woman I've become. I saw black. I saw navy blue. I saw red. But it was the silver dress that caught my eye. It had a subtle, almost discreet, yet striking sheen. It was knee-length, with 3/4 sleeves and an elegant neckline. Nothing vulgar, nothing exaggerated. It was simply beautiful. I tried it on, and when I looked in the mirror, I smiled. I truly smiled. I looked beautiful. The dress fit my body perfectly. It made me feel sophisticated, feminine, powerful. The saleswoman said it looked perfect on me. I looked at the price tag. $300. I hesitated for a second. It was expensive. But then I thought, I work hard every day. I pay all my household bills. I deserve this dress. I bought it without thinking twice. On my birthday, I woke up excited. I cleaned the house, tidied everything up, prepared the food. I made a roast, a salad, bought French bread, prepared appetizers. I wanted everything to be perfect. In the afternoon, I took a long bath, styled my hair, carefully applied makeup, and I put on my silver dress. When I looked in the mirror, I felt beautiful. I felt special. I felt deserving of celebration. Richard was in his room fiddling with his laptop when I came downstairs. He glanced at me briefly and went back to the screen. He didn't say anything. Not even a "You look beautiful." Not even a happy birthday. Nothing. I tried not to let it bother me. He was probably distracted. At least that's what I told myself. My parents arrived first. My mother hugged me and said I looked radiant. My father kissed me on the forehead and gave me a small gift. Jessica arrived soon after with a bouquet of flowers and hugged me tightly. "You look stunning, my friend," she whispered in my ear. That warmed my heart. James and his wife arrived, followed by 2 more couples who were friends. The house filled with people, conversation, and good energy. I served the food, and everyone ate, praising everything. We drank wine, laughed, and told stories. I felt happy. I felt celebrated. I felt seen. Then came the time for the toast. My father stood up with his glass in hand and gave a moving speech. He spoke about how proud he was of me, of everything I had achieved on my own, of how I had always been a strong and determined woman. I felt tears in my eyes. Everyone applauded. James also stood up and made a toast, saying that I was an inspiration, an incredible friend, a hard-working woman. And then Richard stood up. He picked up his wine glass, looked at me with a strange smile, and said loudly, "Well, since everyone's making a toast, I'll make one too." He paused, looked around the room, and continued, "Michelle, happy birthday, 40 years old." My goodness, 40 years old indeed, huh? He laughed in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. And this silver dress. Look, I need to be honest here. He looked at the guests as if he were about to tell a funny joke. "You look like a disco ball from the 70s. Seriously, I almost grabbed my sunglasses because the glare is too bright." Some people laughed. They laughed thinking it was a loving joke between husband and wife. But I saw horror in Jessica's eyes. I saw my mother swallow hard. I saw my father grip the glass tightly. Richard continued, "No, seriously, guys, look at her. It looks like she stole that from a 1970s movie costume. Who wears a silver dress at 40? He laughed louder. "Honey, are you trying to relive your youth or what? Because I'll tell you, it's not working." My face grew hot. My heart raced. My throat tightened. I tried to smile, tried to pretend everything was all right, but my hands trembled. I felt my eyes burning with tears I couldn't let fall. Not there. Not in front of everyone. Jessica stood up immediately. "Richard, that wasn't nice," she said firmly. "Oh, relax, Jessica. It's just a joke. Michelle knows it's a joke. Right, honey?" He looked at me, expecting me to agree, expecting me to laugh along, expecting me to downplay the humiliation he had just caused me in front of the people I loved most. I couldn't speak. My voice had disappeared. I forced a weak smile and took a sip of wine, trying to swallow the pain that was rising in my throat. The atmosphere at the party changed completely. The conversations became forced, the laughter less genuine. My parents exchanged worried glances. Jessica stayed by my side the rest of the night as if she were protecting me. And Richard went back to drinking wine as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just destroyed me inside. When everyone had left, I went up to my room in silence. I took off the silver dress with trembling hands. I looked at it hanging on the chair. That dress that made me feel beautiful. That dress that I bought with so much care. That dress that was now stained by humiliation. I sat on the bed and cried. I cried loudly. I cried without being able to stop. Richard came into the room and looked at me as if I were being dramatic. "Oh, for God's sake, Michelle." "It was just a joke. You're too sensitive." I looked at him through my tears. "You humiliated me in front of my family, in front of my friends, on my birthday. I didn't humiliate you. I made a joke, a harmless joke. If you can't take a joke, that's your problem, not mine." He lay down and fell asleep. He slept peacefully as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just broken something inside me, as if my feelings didn't matter. I stayed up all night, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment in my head, the laughter, the contempt in his eyes, the way he made me feel small, ugly, ridiculous, pathetic. And it was that night, in that painful silence, that something changed inside me. A rage began to grow, a rage I had never felt before, because I realized something. I realized I was supporting a man who despised me, a man who publicly humiliated me, a man who had no respect for me. And for the first time in 15 years, I started to wonder, how much longer was I going to put up with this? The days following my birthday were the worst of my life. I went to work on autopilot. I pretended everything was fine. I smiled when necessary. I answered emails. I attended meetings. But inside, I was broken. The humiliation still burned into my skin like an open wound. Richard acted as if nothing had happened. He didn't apologize. He didn't acknowledge that he had hurt me. He continued his normal life, waking up late, staying on the computer, going out to meet friends. And I continued paying all the bills. I continued supporting everything. But something had changed inside me. That anger that started on the night of my birthday didn't disappear. It grew, and with it came curiosity, a painful curiosity. I started to wonder, where is all my money going? It was on a Thursday night that I decided to check. Richard had gone out for drinks with friends. I was home alone. I sat on the sofa with my laptop and opened the bank account, the joint account that Richard and I shared, the account where my salary was deposited every month, the account that paid all our expenses. I started scrolling through the bank statements, supermarket, electricity bill, water bill, mortgage, car insurance, everything normal, everything expected. But then I started seeing other things I hadn't authorized, things I didn't know existed, an $800 purchase at a golf equipment store. Golf? Richard didn't even play golf. Or at least I thought he didn't. I kept scrolling. $600 at an electronics store. $450 at an expensive downtown restaurant. $300 on designer clothes. $270 on drinks at a bar. My heart started beating faster. I kept investigating. I went back 3 months in the bank statements, and it was worse than I imagined. $1,200 on premium headphones. $900 on a new video game console. $700 on running shoes. $5,000 on a state-of-the-art computer. $5,000. My breath caught in my throat. $5,000 on a computer. While I'd been using the same old laptop for 4 years, while I was saving money on everything, while I was buying clothes on sale, while I was cutting my own hair to save money, I opened the credit card statements. The card that was in my name, but that Richard also had access to. My stomach churned. Last month's bill was $7,000. $7,000 in expenses I didn't even know existed. Expensive restaurants, bars, clothing stores, tech stores, online shopping, subscriptions to streaming services we never even used, a premium gym he went to twice and then quit, extremely expensive dietary supplements, a luxury watch, designer sunglasses. Tears began to fall from my eyes, not from sadness, from anger, from indignation, from betrayal. While I was working myself to death, while I was carrying everything on my shoulders, while I was giving up everything to keep our life running, Richard was spending my money like it was water. I picked up my phone and called Jessica. It was 10 o'clock at night, but I needed to talk to someone before I went crazy. "Michelle, is everything all right?" she answered, worried. "Jess, I've discovered something." My voice came out shaky. Richard is spending my money. A lot of money. Thousands of dollars on things for himself. Things I didn't even know existed. Jessica was silent for a second. How much? In the last 6 months. More than $30,000. Oh my God, Michelle. $30,000. Money I could have saved. Money I could have invested. Money I could have used to travel, to do something I enjoyed, to have a better life. But no, that money went to golf equipment he never used, to expensive electronics that were left forgotten, to dinners at restaurants where he brought his friends while I ate sandwiches at home to save money. What are you going to do? Jessica asked. I didn't know. Not at that moment. But I knew one thing. This couldn't continue. I couldn't continue being used like that. I couldn't continue working like a slave to support the whims of a man who publicly humiliated me. When Richard arrived home that night, drunk and happy, I was waiting for him in the living room. He saw me with my laptop open and tried to smile. Hi, love. Still awake. Sit here, I said in a cold voice. He sat down, staggering a little. What's wrong? I turned the laptop towards him. What is this? He looked at the screen, at the bank statements, at the red numbers, at the absurd expenses. His expression changed. This, I repeated in disbelief. $30,000 in 6 months, Richard. $30,000 of my own money. Money I earn by breaking my back every day. I was going to tell you, he said, avoiding my gaze. You were going to tell me. When we were bankrupt. It's not that serious, Michelle. You earn well. We can afford to pay. Us? We don't pay anything, Richard. I'm the one who pays. I pay for everything. All by myself. And you spend my money as if it were yours. As if you had the right to it. He sighed irritably. Look, I'm your husband. What's yours is mine too. That's how marriage works. Those words hit me like a punch. What's yours is mine too. But the reverse wasn't true, was it? Because Richard never had anything. He never truly contributed. He never took responsibility. He just used. He just took advantage. Aren't you ashamed? I asked, my voice breaking. Don't you have even a shred of shame living off me? Spending my money while I work myself to death? I don't live off you, he replied defensively. I work too when I have a job. You change jobs every 6 months. You never stay anywhere. You never build anything. And when you're unemployed, you spend my money like you're on vacation. Richard stood up angrily. You know what, Michelle? I'm tired of you throwing this in my face. Tired of you making me feel like trash because I don't earn as much as you. You're arrogant. You think you're better than me because you have a stable job. Then he went upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. I sat there in the dark, alone, with the bank statement still open in front of me, with the painful truth staring me in the face. I was married to a man who used me, who disrespected me, who humiliated me, and who now called me arrogant for questioning his absurd spending habits. That night I realized something important. I couldn't pretend everything was okay anymore. I couldn't accept that situation anymore. Something needed to change. And this time, the change would come from me. After that night, I started to see everything with different eyes. It was as if a veil had fallen. I began to remember moments that I had buried in my memory. Moments that I ignored during the season. Moments that now made perfect sense. I remembered when I got my first promotion, 10 years ago. I arrived home beaming, told Richard I was going to get a 20% raise. Do you know what he said? Oh, great. So now you can pay off that high credit card bill. There were no congratulations, no celebration, no pride. Just the expectation that my money would solve his problems. I remembered when I won the Manager of the Year award 5 years ago. It was a huge recognition at the company. My boss gave a moving speech about my dedication. I received a trophy, a bonus, and applause from all my colleagues. I arrived home emotional, holding the trophy. Richard was playing video games. He looked at the trophy and said, "Cool. How much was the bonus? When I replied that it was $3,000, he smiled. Great. I need to change my cell phone. I remembered when I took over full management of the department 3 years ago. It was the biggest achievement of my career. I was responsible for 20 employees, for millions in operations. I arrived home wanting to celebrate. Richard was on the sofa watching TV. I told him the news. He didn't even pause the program. That's a lot of work, isn't it? You're going to get even more stressed. Not a word of encouragement. Not a word of support. Just the negative comment. And I noticed another pattern. Whenever I had an achievement, Richard found a way to diminish it. Whenever I shared something good, he poured cold water on it. Whenever I wanted to celebrate, he made me feel guilty. You work too much, Michelle. You're neglecting our marriage. That's what he used to say when I stayed late at the office finishing an important project. You care more about your job than about me. That's what he used to say when I needed to travel for work. You're becoming a workaholic. That's not healthy. That's what he used to say when I was studying to further my qualifications. He never truly supported me. He never valued my effort. He never acknowledged that I was building our financial stability on my own. To him, my work was just a source of income that maintained his comfortable lifestyle. I also started to realize how he was sabotaging me. How many times did I have important meetings and he started a fight the night before so I would arrive stressed? How many times did I have crucial presentations and he complained that I wasn't paying attention to him? How many times did I need to focus and he created drama to destabilize me? Richard never wanted me to grow, because the more I grew professionally, the more evident it became that he was stagnating. The more I achieved, the more obvious it was that he wasn't achieving anything. So he belittled me. He made me feel guilty. He made me believe that my success was a problem for our marriage. And I believed it. For years, I believed it. I started turning down promotions, thinking I needed a better work-life balance. I started avoiding business trips so I wouldn't leave Richard alone. I started limiting myself professionally so it wouldn't seem like I was putting my career above my marriage. But the painful truth was something else. Richard didn't want a balanced marriage. He wanted a provider. Someone who worked, earned money, paid for everything, and still made him feel important. Someone who would support everything but never complain. Someone who would carry the burden alone but never demand reciprocity. I sat on my bed one night, reflecting on the last 15 years. 15 years where I was solely responsible for everything. 15 years where I carried a grown man on my back. 15 years where I received humiliation in return for my sacrifice. And the question that wouldn't go away was, why did I allow this? Why did I accept being treated like a money-making machine? Why did I never set a limit? The answer was painful, but simple. Because I was afraid of being alone. Afraid to admit that my marriage was fake. Afraid to face failure. So I continued. I continued pretending that everything was okay. I continued sacrificing myself. I continued accepting crumbs of affection while giving everything I had. But something had changed. The humiliation of my birthday. The discovery of the absurd expenses. All of this had opened my eyes in an irreversible way. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't accept it anymore. I couldn't live like that anymore. I looked at Richard sleeping peacefully beside me. Carefree. Responsibilities-free. Living comfortably at my expense while despising me. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt something beyond resignation. I felt anger. I felt indignation. I felt the urge to react. And it was at that moment that I made a decision. I was going to do something about it. I didn't know exactly what yet. But I knew I wasn't going to accept that situation anymore. I wasn't going to be invisible in my own marriage anymore. I wasn't going to support a man who disrespected me anymore. The change was beginning. And this time, it would be permanent. In the following weeks, I became an investigator of my own life. Every night when Richard went out or slept, I delved into the financial documents. And the more I discovered, the more my stomach churned. I started with the credit cards. We had 3 in total, 2 in my name and 1 joint. I opened all the statements from the last 2 years. I printed everything. I separated them by category. I marked each suspicious expense with a yellow pen. In the end, I had a stack of papers full of yellow markings. It looked like a sea of evidence of my own naivete. I discovered that Richard had opened an additional credit card without telling me. It was in my name, using my credit, but I had never seen this card. The bill was being sent to his email. I managed to access it and almost threw up. $12,000 in debt, $12,000 in purchases I was completely unaware of, camping equipment that had never been used, an expensive electric bicycle that was sitting unused in the garage, designer clothes, dinners, drinks, tickets to basketball games, a membership to a private club, and worst of all, jewelry. Expensive jewelry that I never received. Who was he buying jewelry for? My mind started imagining terrible things. Did he have a mistress? Was he spending my money on another woman? I compared the dates on the jewelry. They were from last year. I casually asked if he remembered my birthday last year. He said he gave me flowers that cost $20. But the jewelry on the statement cost $800. I investigated further. I discovered that the jewelry was delivered to his mother's address. I called her, making small talk, and let slip a question about whether Richard had left any packages there. She said yes, that he picked up some gifts he had bought for his friends. Gifts, with my money, for his friends. I kept digging. I opened our savings account, the account that should have had at least $50,000 saved. It had $3,000. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Where did $47,000 go? I called the bank asking for the complete account statement. It took 3 days for the documents to arrive. When I opened it, my hands were trembling. Withdrawals, and more withdrawals. $1,000 here, $2,000 there, $500, $800, $3,000. Over the course of 2 years, Richard had emptied our savings. I confronted him one Saturday morning. I put the documents on the kitchen table. Where's the savings money? Richard looked at the papers and sighed. I needed this, Michelle. Did he need it? Did he need $47,000? For what? Investments, he said, avoiding my gaze. What investments? Some business opportunities with friends. Things that didn't work out. You took $47,000 from our savings to invest in business without consulting me. I was going to tell you if it worked out. It would have been a surprise. The only surprise here is discovering that I'm married to a liar. He got angry. I'm not a liar. I tried to do something for us. I tried to make real money, but it went wrong. It happens. What happened? Richard. That money was our security. It was our future. And you threw it all away on shady schemes without even telling me. You really wouldn't understand. You're too conservative, too afraid. That's why you'll never be truly rich. You don't take risks. Those words cut me to the bone. Was I fearful because I worked hard and saved money? Was I conservative because I didn't throw money away? His audacity in blaming me for being responsible while he was reckless was surreal. But I didn't stop there. I continued investigating. I requested my credit report. When it arrived, I discovered another bombshell. Richard had used my name to take out loans, a motorcycle I'd never seen, a personal loan of $15,000, another of $10,000, all in my name, all affecting my credit, all without my authorization. I called the financial institutions. I explained that I hadn't authorized those loans. They said they had my signature. I asked for copies of the documents. When they arrived, I saw them. My signature was forged. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough to fool a bank employee. Richard had forged my signature. He had incurred debts in my name. He had destroyed the credit I had so carefully built up over the years. And for what? To support a lifestyle he couldn't afford. To impress friends. To play the playboy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, calculating how much money I had lost, calculating how much Richard had cost me over the years. The result was devastating. Over $150,000. $150,000 that I could have saved, that I could have invested, that I could have used to build something real. But no, that money went to support a man who not only disrespected me, but also robbed me, because that's what Richard was. A thief, a liar, a manipulator who used my love, my trust, and my work to live a life he never deserved. I looked at him sleeping beside me and felt disgust. Disgust at having been so blind. Disgust at having allowed it. Disgust at myself for having accepted crumbs while he ate the banquet. But that disgust turned into determination. A cold, calculated determination. Because now I knew everything. I knew about the lies. I knew about the debts. I knew about the forgery. And most importantly, now I had evidence. I kept all the documents in a folder. I organized everything chronologically. I made copies. I saved everything to the cloud, because I knew I would need it. I knew the time to act would come, and when that time came, I would be prepared. Richard thought I was timid, conservative, weak, but he was about to find out he was very wrong, because the woman who supported an entire family alone for 15 years wasn't weak. She was strong enough to rebuild, and strong enough to destroy whoever tried to destroy me first. The following Monday, I called Jessica during my lunch break. I needed advice. I needed someone to help me think clearly. "Jess, do you know any divorce lawyers?" There was silence on the other end of the line. Then she said softly, "Are you really going to do this? I need to at least know what my options are." Jessica gave me Margaret's contact information. She was a lawyer who had helped her cousin years ago. She said Margaret was discreet, competent, and didn't judge anyone. That was exactly what I needed. I called Margaret's office that same afternoon. I scheduled an appointment for Thursday at 5 o'clock. I told Richard I had a work meeting that was going to run long. He didn't even ask for details. Margaret's office was on the 12th floor of a building downtown. It was elegant, but not intimidating. The receptionist offered me water and said Margaret would see me in a few minutes. When I entered her office, I saw a woman of about 50, with gray hair tied in a bun, discreet glasses, and a gentle smile. "Michelle?" She extended her hand. "Yes. Thank you for having me. Please sit down. Tell me what's going on." And I told her. I told her everything. The 15 years I spent supporting everything on my own. The humiliation on my birthday, the hidden expenses, the debts, the depleted savings, the loans in my name, the forged signature. I spoke for 40 minutes without stopping, and Margaret listened to everything, noting down important details. When I finished, she took off her glasses and looked at me seriously. "Michelle, you have a very strong case here. Very strong indeed. Strong how? First, you've been the sole provider for your family for years. This is documented in bank statements and tax returns. Second, he incurred debts in your name without authorization. That's a crime. Third, he forged your signature. That's also a crime. You're not just asking for a divorce. You have grounds for criminal prosecution if you want." My heart raced. I don't want to destroy him. I just want my freedom. I understand. But it's important for you to know your options. Now, let's talk about strategy. Margaret opened a folder and began to explain. First, I needed to protect my assets immediately. Open a separate bank account in my name only. Transfer half of what remained from the joint account to this new account. It was my legal right. Secondly, I needed to cancel all the additional credit cards that Richard had access to. Keep only one card in my name that he didn't know about. Third, change all my passwords. Bank, email, everything. Richard couldn't have access to anything. Fourth, document absolutely everything. Every single expense he makes. Every lie. Every piece of evidence of financial irresponsibility. Fifth, not to confront him yet. Not to give any indication that I was planning anything. The element of surprise would be my greatest weapon. "How much time do you think you need to get organized?" Margaret asked. "A few weeks, perhaps." "Perfect. Use this time wisely." "And Michelle," she looked at me kindly, "you're doing the right thing. I know it's hard. I know it's scary. But you deserve better than this." I left her office with a strange feeling. relief mixed with fear, hope mixed with sadness. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a plan. I felt like I was in control. In the following days, I followed every step Margaret had guided me through. I opened a new account at a different bank. I transferred $23,000 from the joint account. It was half of what was there. Richard didn't even understand why he never checked the balance. He just spent it. I canceled the additional cards. When Richard tried to use one of them and was denied, he complained to me. He said the bank was crazy. I called pretending to resolve the issue, but I didn't resolve anything. I changed all my passwords. Personal email, work email, bank, everything. I used complex passwords that Richard would never guess. I started to save. I made copies of everything on a flash drive that I kept in my office. Bank statements, credit card bills, incriminating emails, everything. I made a backup of every backup. And most importantly, I started preparing myself emotionally, because I knew that when the time came to act, I couldn't hesitate. I couldn't let guilt or pity stop me. 15 years was too long being used, too long being disrespected, too long carrying someone who only dragged me down. At night, lying in bed next to Richard, I planned. I planned every move, every word, every action. It was like playing chess, and I was several moves ahead of him. Richard had no idea of the hurricane that was coming. He continued his normal life, waking up late, staying on the computer, spending my money, treating me with indifference. But I knew that soon everything would change. I knew that soon I would get my life back. I knew that soon I would cut every thread that bound me to him. Unlike him, who lived by improvisation, I had a plan, a detailed plan, a plan that would give me my freedom back. The next 2 weeks were the most tense of my life. I was living a double life. By day, I was the same old Michelle. I worked, solved problems, attended meetings. At night, at home, I pretended everything was normal with Richard. But inside, I was executing a meticulous plan. I started by organizing all the important documents: marriage certificate, house deed, car documents, insurance policies, income tax returns from the last 5 years. I made copies of everything. I kept the originals in a folder that I took to my office. Richard never came to my work. It was safe there. I also gathered all the payment receipts. 15 years of receipts proving that I was paying the mortgage on my own. Proof of all the bills in my name. Everything that demonstrated that I was the sole and true provider for the family. Margaret had instructed me to make a complete inventory of all the assets. I sat down one afternoon and listed everything. The house was worth $350,000. We still owed $120,000 on the mortgage. The car was mine. It was in my name. Paid off. We had some valuable furniture. The large TV that Richard had insisted on buying. The leather sofa. But nothing very significant. What really mattered was the property. And Margaret had been clear. Since I had been paying the mortgage myself all these years, and since Richard had never contributed consistently, I had a very strong claim to the property. I continued transferring money discreetly. Every week, I would withdraw $2,000 or $3,000 from the joint account and put it into my separate account. I made it seem like they were normal expenses. A slightly more expensive grocery bill. Gas. Medicine. Things that wouldn't raise suspicion. In 2 weeks, I managed to transfer another $15,000. Adding that to the initial $23,000, I had $38,000 protected. It was my safety net. It was my freedom in the form of numbers in a bank account. I also started sorting through my personal belongings. Nothing too obvious. Some clothes I took to the office saying I was going to donate them. Jewelry my grandmother left me that I kept in a bank safe deposit box. Family photos that I scanned and saved to the cloud. Sentimental documents that couldn't be replaced. Richard didn't notice anything. He was too busy with his own life. He'd started yet another new job, in sales again. He said that this time it would be different. That this time it would work out. I just smiled and agreed. There was no point in arguing anymore. One night, while he was watching TV, I sat down with my laptop and reviewed everything I had done up to that point. separate account with 38,000, documents organized and stored in a safe place, copies of all the evidence of his irresponsibility. All passwords changed, cards blocked, complete inventory of assets, lawyer's contact saved on my cell phone. Almost everything was ready. Only one thing was missing: the courage to execute the final step, the final cut. That moment when I would call the bank and close all the floodgates, completely block their access to my money. Margaret had advised me on this. When you do it, it has to be final. No going back. He's going to be furious. He's going to try to manipulate you. You need to be emotionally prepared. Was I prepared? I wasn't sure. 15 years with someone don't disappear overnight. Even with all the anger, all the disappointment, all the hurt, there was still a part of me that felt something for Richard. Or maybe it was just grief for the person I thought he was. Jessica visited me one Saturday for lunch. We sat at a cafe near my house. She looked at me with concern. "Are you okay? You seem exhausted." "I'm tired, Jess. Tired of pretending." "So stop pretending. Do what you need to do." "What if I'm making a mistake?" Jessica held my hand. "Michelle, look at me. The mistake was allowing this for 15 years. The mistake was accepting being disrespected. The mistake was supporting someone who humiliates you. You're not making any mistake. You're saving yourself." Those words gave me strength. I returned home with renewed determination. I would no longer hesitate. I would no longer have doubts. The time to act had come. That night, lying in bed, I picked up my phone and reviewed the script I had written. The script of what I was going to say when the moment came. I mentally rehearsed. I visualized the scene. I prepared myself for his reaction. Monday would be the day. Monday morning. As soon as Richard left for work, I was going to do everything. I was going to call the bank. I was going to close the joint account. I was going to freeze everything. And when he got back, I was going to hand over the divorce papers that Margaret had already prepared. I looked at Richard sleeping beside me. For the last time as my responsibility. For the last time as someone who had access to the fruits of my labor. For the last time as my husband. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would get my life back. Now tell me something. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that you knew would change your life forever? A decision that terrified you, but that you knew you needed to make? Share in the comments. I want to know if you identify with this moment of mixed courage and fear, because what comes after what I'm experiencing now is going to be intense. Monday dawned. I woke up before my alarm. My heart was already racing. Today was the day. The day that would change everything forever. Richard got ready for work as usual. He had coffee, complained about the traffic he was going to face, and grabbed his car keys. "Bye. See you tonight," he said without even looking me in the eye. "Goodbye," I replied calmly. But inside, my heart was racing. I waited for him to leave. I waited for the sound of the car driving away. I waited another 5 minutes to be sure. Then I took a deep breath. This was it. I called the bank. The operator answered with that cheerful, automated voice. "Good morning. My name is Michelle. I need to make some urgent changes to my account." "Of course, ma'am. Could you give me your account number?" I provided all the information. I confirmed my identity. And then I began. "I want to cancel all additional cards linked to my account. All of them. May I ask the reason, ma'am?" "Unauthorized use. I want to cancel immediately." "Understood. I'll process this now." "Anything else?" "Yes. I want to close the joint account. I want to transfer all the remaining balance to my individual account." There was a pause. "Ma'am, to close a joint account, we usually need authorization from both account holders. I'm the only one who deposits money into this account. All the money is mine. I need to close it today." The clerk checked something in the system. "And I see here that you are indeed the sole source of deposits. I'll forward this to my supervisor." I waited. Each second felt like an eternity. Finally, a male voice. "Good morning, ma'am. I understand you want to close the joint account?" "Yes, today. Now. May I ask if there is a problem?" "Yes. My husband has been using my money without authorization. He has incurred debts in my name. He forged my signature. And I have a lawyer. I can send all the documentation if necessary. His tone changed. That won't be necessary, ma'am. I'll process the closing immediately. The balance will be transferred to your individual account within an hour. Thanks. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. It was done. First step completed. I called the credit card company. Same process. I canceled the joint card. I canceled all the additional cards. The representative tried to convince me not to do it, saying I would lose points and benefits. I don't care. Cancel everything. Done, ma'am. Second step. Done. I called Margaret. It's done. I canceled everything. Great, Michelle. Now you need to prepare yourself. When he finds out, it's going to be difficult. Are you ready? I am, but I wasn't. Nobody is ever truly ready to implode their own life. I spent the day working, but my mind was elsewhere. Every time my phone rang, my heart skipped a beat. But Richard didn't call. He still hadn't found out. I got home at 6 p.m. Richard was already there, on the sofa, fiddling with his phone. Hi, I said. Hi. He didn't even look up. I went to the bedroom. I grabbed the folder I had hidden at the back of the closet. The folder with all the documents, all the evidence, and the divorce papers that Margaret had prepared. I went downstairs. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to faint. I put the folder on the coffee table. Richard, we need to talk. About what? He asked, still looking at his cell phone. About us. About our marriage. About money. He finally looked at me. Again with this, Michelle. I already told you that. Today, I canceled all the cards you had access to. He froze. What did you do? I canceled all my credit cards. I closed the joint account. I transferred all the money to an account that is only mine. Richard stood up slowly. His expression changed from confusion to anger. You can't do this. I already did it. The bank confirmed it a few hours ago. Are you crazy? How am I supposed to pay for my things? It's not my problem anymore, Richard. He took a step toward me. His voice was rising. You have no right to do this. This money is ours. It's not ours. It's mine. I earned it. I worked for it. You just spent it. I'm your husband. We have a joint account. You can't just cut me off. Yes, I can. And I cut it. I opened the folder and took out the bank statements. Look here, Richard. Look at these numbers. $30,000 in 6 months. $47,000 in savings. Loans in my name. Forged signature. You robbed me. I didn't steal anything. It's family money. Family? What family, Richard? A family where you publicly humiliate me. A family where you spend my money without consulting me. A family where you forge my signature. He blushed. You're exaggerating everything. I did this for us. For us? You bought golf equipment for us? You emptied our savings for us? You bought jewelry that I never received for us? Richard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I took another piece of paper from the folder. These are the divorce papers. I'm handing them to you today. You have 30 days to respond. You're not serious. I'm completely serious. Michelle, you can't do this to me. I have no money. I have nowhere to go. I should have thought about that before disrespecting myself for 15 years. He changed tactics. Anger turned to panic. Michelle, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to therapy. I'll change. I promise. You promised to change 15 times in the last 15 years. It was always a lie. This time it's different. I swear. It's no different, Richard. And I'm tired. Tired of being your mother. Tired of being your provider. Tired of being invisible. He knelt down. He literally knelt in front of me. Please, don't do this. I love you. I looked at him there, on his knees, begging, and I felt no pity. I felt no guilt. I felt only clarity. If you loved me, you wouldn't have humiliated me on my birthday. If you loved me, You wouldn't have stolen from me. If you loved me, you would have respected me. I respect you. You called me a disco ball in front of my family. That's not respect." His tears seemed real, but I didn't care anymore. 15 years of my tears that he ignored. 15 years of pain that he caused. I wasn't going to fall for his manipulation now. "You have 1 week to get out of this house," I said firmly. 1 week. Michelle, I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore. The house is in my name. I paid for it myself. You'll have to find another place." Richard stood up. Sadness turned to fury again. "You'll regret this. You'll see how hard it is to be alone. No one will want you anymore." And there it was. The mask had completely fallen. The man who said he loved me was now attacking me, belittling me, trying to make me feel small. But it didn't work, because I was no longer that insecure Michelle. I was the Michelle who had woken up. "Get out of my way, Richard. This house is mine too." "No, it's not. Read the documents. Read what my lawyer prepared. You're not entitled to anything." He picked up the papers and read them. I saw his face turn pale. "You can't do this. I'll contest it. I'll fight." "Fight. Take it to the judge. Show him how you forged my signature. Show him how you incurred debts in my name. Show him how you never contributed anything. Go ahead. Fight. I have all the evidence." Richard threw the papers on the floor. "You're a bitch! Get out of my house!" He looked at me with hatred. Pure hatred. And then he went upstairs and stomping. I heard him throwing things, cursing, breaking something. I sat on the sofa and breathed. My hands were trembling. My whole body was trembling. But I had done it. I had cut off every penny that was supporting him. I had reclaimed my power. I had freed myself. Richard came down half an hour later with a suitcase. "You're going to regret this." He spat the words. "I'm not going. For the first time in 15 years. I won't regret anything." He slammed the door as he left. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat there, alone, in my room, in my house, and I cried. I cried not because I lost him, but because I finally found myself. The following days were strange. The house was too quiet. I would wake up and for a second forget what had happened. Then reality would hit. Richard was gone. I had filed for divorce. My life had been turned upside down. But contrary to what I imagined, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Richard tried to call dozens of times on the first day. I ignored all the calls. He sent messages. Angry messages at first. "You destroyed my life. You're cruel. I hope you're alone forever." Then the messages changed tone. They became desperate. "Please answer the phone. We need to talk. I don't even have money to eat. Are you really going to leave me on the street?" I blocked his number. He showed up at my house Wednesday night. He knocked insistently on the door. Michelle, open this door. We need to talk." I looked out the window. He was wearing the same clothes as 2 days ago. He looked like he hadn't slept. I didn't open the door. I called Jessica. "He's here, at the front door. I don't know what to do. Do you want me to come there?" "I want." Jessica arrived 20 minutes later with James. They got out of the car and went straight to talk to Richard. I didn't hear the conversation, but I saw it through the window. James spoke firmly, pointing his finger at Richard. Richard tried to argue. Jessica shook her head negatively. Finally, Richard got into the car and drove away. Jessica and James went inside. "He's desperate," Jessica said. "He said he's sleeping in the car, that he doesn't have money for a hotel, that you left him with nothing. He never had anything. The difference is that now he no longer has access to my money. He said that you are his wife, that you have an obligation to help. I helped for 15 years. It's over." James looked at me respectfully. "You're doing the right thing, Michelle. This guy has used you for years. Don't let him manipulate you now." The next day, Richard sent messages through Facebook since I had blocked his number. Long messages. Dramatic. "Michelle, I know I messed up. I know I was a terrible husband. But you can't abandon me like this. I have no family here. I have nowhere to go. You are all I have. Please, at least give me a chance to talk in person. Give me a chance to explain myself." I didn't reply. He tried through Instagram, through email. He even sent a letter to my house. A handwritten letter, 5 pages long. I read it out of curiosity. It was pathetic. He portrayed himself as a victim. He said I had changed, that I was being influenced by envious friends, that our life was good before I decided to destroy everything, that he had always loved me, and that he didn't understand how I could throw away 15 years like that. 15 years. As if those 15 years had been good. As if he had contributed anything but pain. Margaret called me at the end of the week. "Michelle, Richard's lawyer has been in touch. Did he get a lawyer? With what money? Probably a public defender. He's contesting the divorce. He says he wants half of everything." I laughed. I really laughed. Half of what? Of the house I paid for myself? Of the money I earned myself? That's exactly what we're going to argue. We have all the evidence. He has no case, but it will delay the process a bit. I don't care. I'll wait as long as it takes. 2 weeks after the confrontation, my mother showed up at home. She had spoken with Richard. He had gone to my parents' and house begging them to intercede for him. "Michelle, I know he was wrong," my mother began carefully. "But couldn't you two try again? Go to therapy. He seems genuinely sorry." "Mom, he humiliated me. He robbed me. He forged my signature. He incurred debts in my name." "I know, daughter, I know. But marriage is also about forgiveness. I forgave 15 times in 15 years. I'm not going to forgive again. What if you regret it later?" "Mom, look at me. Do I look regretful? For the first time in years, I'm sleeping well. I'm eating well. I don't have constant headaches. I'm not anxious. I'm free." My mother hugged me. "It's okay, daughter. If that's what you want, I support you." Richard tried another strategy. He showed up at my work. The receptionist called me saying there was a man at reception asking to speak to me. "Tell him it's urgent." I went downstairs, and there he was. Thin, with dark circles under his eyes. Unshaven. "Michelle, please. Just 5 minutes." "No. I lost my job. I have no way to pay rent. I'm literally on the street. That's not my problem. How can you be so cold? I'm your husband. You were my husband. Now you're just someone who used me for 15 years. I loved you. I love you. Love does not humiliate. Love does not steal. Love does not lie." I turned my back and went back to my office. He shouted my name in the hallway, but security was already coming. I didn't look back. That night, sitting alone in my room, I realized something important. Richard was desperate because he had lost his source of income. Not because he had lost his wife, not because he missed me, but because the money had run out. All the attempts at manipulation, all the dramatic messages, all the pleas for forgiveness, they weren't about love. They were about money. They were about regaining access to what I earned. They were about returning to living comfortably at my expense. And this revelation, instead of making me sad, made me stronger, because it showed me that I had made the right decision, that there was nothing to save there, that there was never real love, only convenience, only use, only emotional and financial parasitism. I blocked Richard on all social media. I blocked his email. I instructed my building security not to let him up. I told my company that if he showed up again, they should call the police. Jessica visited me and found me smiling. "You look good." "I'm fine. Better than I've been in years." "No regrets?" "None. Zero. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking about myself. And you know what I discovered? I deserve more. I always have." Richard continued trying for a few more weeks, but each attempt was weaker than the last, until finally they stopped. The silence was wonderful. I had cut off the pennies that were supporting him, and he had fallen apart, because without my money, without my work, without my support, he was nothing. He never was. And me, I was just beginning to be reborn. 6 months have passed since that Monday that changed my life. 6 months since I cut Richard out of my life, both financially and emotionally. And in those 6 months, I've transformed into someone I barely recognize. A better version of myself. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago. Margaret got everything she promised. I kept the house. I kept the car. No alimony for him. No division of assets. Richard contested, yelled, threatened. But in the end, the judge looked at all the evidence and ruled in my favor. 15 years of payment receipts speak louder than manipulation. Richard disappeared after the sentencing. I heard he went back to his hometown, that he's living with his mother, that he finally got a steady job because he had no other choice. I don't care. He's no longer my problem. My life has changed in ways I never imagined. Without the burden of supporting someone else, my salary is finally mine. Completely mine. I pay my bills, which are lower now because I'm not funding anyone's extravagances. And I have money left over. Lots of money. I opened a real savings account, one that nobody can touch. I already have $40,000 saved. I also started investing. Stocks, funds, retirement planning. Things I always wanted to do but never could, because all the money went to cover Richard's expenses. I renovated the house. I painted the walls in colors I like. I bought new furniture. I decorated it my way. Each room now reflects who I am. There are no more video games scattered around. There are no more expensive equipment lying around. There's no more mess left by someone who didn't contribute anything. I've rediscovered my hobbies. I started yoga classes. I joined a book club. I go for walks every weekend in a beautiful park near my house. I've rediscovered the pleasure of doing things just because I want to, not because I have to work nonstop to support someone else. My friendships have grown stronger. Jessica and I have lunch together every week. She says she's never seen me so happy, so lighthearted. And it's true. I feel like a giant weight has been lifted off my shoulders, like I can finally breathe deeply. At work, I got a promotion. My boss said he'd noticed a change in me over the last few months. More focused, more confident, more present. I laughed when he said that. Of course I'm more focused. I no longer have drama at home draining my energy. The salary increase was significant. And you know the first thing I did? I planned a trip. A trip just for me. I'm going to Europe next month. 2 weeks visiting Paris, Rome, and Barcelona. Places I've always wanted to see but never could, because all the money went to cover Richard's irresponsibility. I also started therapy. I needed to process everything that happened, to understand why I accepted being treated like that for so long. My therapist helped me see patterns I had never noticed before. How I always put the needs of others before my own. How I confused sacrifice with love. How I was afraid of disappointing people. But now I'm learning something new. I'm learning that taking care of myself isn't selfishness. That setting boundaries isn't cruelty. That saying no is a form of self-love. Today is my 41st birthday. Exactly 1 year since that horrible night when Richard humiliated me in front of everyone. 1 year since my life began to crumble, only to rebuild itself stronger. I decided to do something special. I invited my closest friends over for dinner. Not at home this time. At a nice restaurant downtown. Because now I can. Because now the money is mine to spend however I want. And do you know what I wore? The silver dress. That same dress that Richard ridiculed. That dress that became a symbol of my humiliation, became a symbol of my liberation. When I arrived at the restaurant, everyone was already there. Jessica, James and his wife, my parents, some co-workers. And when they saw me, they applauded. "You look stunning," Jessica shouted. I was radiant, not just because of the dress, but because I was finally free. Free from someone who diminished me. Free from a toxic marriage. Free to be myself. During dinner, my father made a toast. Last year, we were here and saw our daughter being disrespected. This year, we see a strong, independent, radiant woman. Michelle, you've always been amazing, but now you know it, and that makes all the difference. I cried, but this time they were tears of joy, of gratitude, of pride in myself. At the end of the night, when everyone had left, Jessica stayed with me in the parking lot. "You're really happy, aren't you?" "I am, Jess. Happier than I ever imagined possible." "Aren't you afraid of being alone?" I thought about the question. You know, I realized something. I was more alone when I was married than I am now, because at least now I have myself, and I've discovered that my own company is much better than being with someone who makes me feel invisible. I drove home with the windows down, music loud, singing. I arrived and went inside my house. My house, the one I paid for, the one I earned, the one that was now truly mine. I carefully took off the silver dress. I looked at it. A year ago, this dress represented the worst night of my life. Today, it represents my victory. It represents the courage to cut the pennies that were supporting a man who didn't deserve me. It represents the strength to start over. I lay down on the bed, in my room, in my house, and I smiled. I smiled thinking about everything I've achieved on my own, about everything I'm still going to achieve, about all the possibilities that open up when you get rid of those who drag you down. Richard was wrong. I didn't stay single because nobody wanted me. I chose to be single because I finally learned my worth. And when you know your worth, you don't accept less than you deserve. The woman who supported a man for 15 years now supports only herself, and she has discovered that she is much lighter this way, much freer, much happier. This is the end of my story. Or rather, it's the beginning. Because for the first time in 15 years, my life is truly mine. And the future is bright. As bright as that silver dress that taught me I deserved to shine. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining me on this journey. The moral of my story is simple. You teach people how to treat you. When you accept disrespect, you allow them to continue disrespecting you. The moment you say enough is when your life truly begins. No matter how many years you've invested in something wrong, it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to cut out what's draining you. It's never too late to shine, like that silver dress taught me to. Now tell me, did this story make you reflect on your own life? Are you supporting someone who doesn't value you? Are you ready for change? Comment below. I want to hear your story. If my story touched you, give the video a like. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next exciting stories. Remember, you deserve respect. You deserve to be valued. Don't let anyone dim your light.